If you work in a food and grain facility like this one, you may be wondering, why is grain dust so volatile? If that's something you've ever considered, I'm glad you're here. I'm Jordan with SonicAire, and today we're talking about grain dust on this episode of You Ask, We Answer. Before we get rolling, if you find this information helpful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You can also follow us on LinkedIn for more helpful information about everything dust related. You don't have to search the internet or YouTube for very long to find a video of a grain dust explosion. There are countless documented examples of dust explosions, and a large portion of these seem to have something to do with grain or agricultural dusts. According to the Combustible Dust Incident Report from Dust Safety Science, food products made up half of all reported combustible dust fires and explosions in 2021. And between 1975 and 1988, an average of 20 grain dust explosions occurred each year in the United States. Ask anyone who lived in the rural Midwest during this period, and they'll tell you that it was very common to hear about a grain silo explosion every summer. Technology and better grain handling practices have helped curb the rate at which we see grain dust events, but the hazard still exists. Why is that? Why does food dust like grain, sugar, and corn seem to be so volatile? Well, there are three primary measurements that determine the combustibility of a given dust. First is the KST value, which quantifies how fast pressure increases during an explosion. Second is the minimum explosive concentration, or the MEC, which is how much dust must be present in the air to facilitate an explosion. And finally, the minimum ignition energy, or MIE, which measures how easy it is to ignite the dust. While the KST value helps quantify the potential damage that could occur during a dust explosion, it's really the two other characteristics that determine dust volatility. If we're speaking scientifically, we would only look at the MEC and the MIE. So a dust that requires only a small amount of energy and only a small volume to ignite would be considered a volatile dust. But when you and I are talking about the real world volatility of grain dust, we're probably thinking outside of the laboratory. There are many other dusts out there that have higher MIE or MEC ratings. So again, what's the deal with grain dust? Well, there's one other factor that comes into play in the real world, and that's dust handling practices. Most grain dust events happen at transfer points, and that's probably not surprising because grain has to be processed, and throughout that process, it has to move from point to point throughout a facility a lot. And those transfer points create more dust as the grain is handled and crushed. This is an opportunity for the dust to now escape into the atmosphere. Now we're talking about fugitive dust, and fugitive dust is often the finest and the driest dust, making it also the most volatile dust in the whole process. It then accumulates on horizontal surfaces once it escapes the process. So frequently the hard to reach spaces are the ones that are ignored, and over time, this accumulation can be significant. For some agricultural dust, the accumulation required to reach the minimum explosive concentration is only as thick as a piece of paper. This is why housekeeping and maintenance around transfer points are absolutely critical in grain handling facilities. So it's really not one specific factor that makes grain dust so volatile. It's actually three. Number one, the minimum ignition energy. Number two, the minimum explosive concentration. And three, it's the challenges of safe grain dust handling. These three combined elements are what make food and grain dust so volatile. If you want to create a safer, healthier, and more efficient grain handling facility, contact one of our dust safety experts today. You can get started on our website or by sending us an email at moreinfo@sonicaire.com. If this answer to your question on grain dust leads you to even more questions, check out our video library here on YouTube, visit our website, or our LinkedIn page. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. If you work in a food and grain facility, how about that helicopter right there, giving us some great aerial coverage from the Channel 12 news team. I've been sitting here trying to find myself.